Nonprofit work, especially in 2026, isn't easy. But the good news is you do not have to figure it out all alone. You're invited to join me and hundreds of other change makers at Bloomerang's annual conference, GiveCon, coming up May 17th through 20th. And trust me, this is the place to be if you want to sharpen your fundraising and communication skills. I'll be there leading a session called From Passive Posts to Powerful Campaigns, Social Media That Drives Donations. If you've been wanting to turn your content into real conversion, you're going to love this one. But here's the part you don't want to miss. GiveCon's lowest registration rate is available right now for the next few weeks. This is the perfect moment to grab your ticket and save your organization some budget. Join me and an incredible community of nonprofits at GiveCon. Learn more and register at givecon.com. That's GIVECON.com. Now on to the episode. Hello, and welcome to Nonprofit Nation. I'm your host, Julia Campbell, and I'm going to sit down with nonprofit industry experts, fundraisers, marketers, and everyone in between to get real and discuss what it takes to build that movement that you've been dreaming of. I created the Nonprofit Nation podcast to share practical wisdom and strategies to help you confidently find your voice, definitively grow your audience, and effectively build your movement. If you're a nonprofit newbie or an experienced professional who's looking to get more visibility, reach more people, and create even more impact, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. This is Nonprofit Nation with your host, Julia Campbell. Today, we're going to talk about something that nonprofits often struggle with, to get people to take real action from their digital content. And I'm sitting down with Kiara Williams, founder of Digital Movement Media and Treuse Cinema, and co-founder of Warriors in the Garden. And Kiara is a movement builder, strategist, and storyteller whose work bridges digital strategy and real-world community impact. She also spoke at the Nonprofit Social Media Summit 2025. We are working on some projects together for this year. So I'm excited to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Julia. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm excited to talk today and chat.
Yes. So I was reading your bio, a little bit about your origin story. You first came into national focus at age 20 when you organized thousands of people through the streets of New York City during the 2020 movements for racial justice. So what sparked your path into activism?
Yeah. I'm on record in a lot of places saying it was George Floyd's murder, but honestly, I think that was like the last tidbit of trauma I could handle. And, earlier that year, it was Ahmaud Arbery and it was Breonna Taylor. And then before that, it was just all of the state sanctioned deaths in the Black community at the hands of police brutality really led up from Trayvon Martin all the way up to, me going outside for the first ever George Floyd protest in New York City at Barclays Center. And I was just really angry. I was so upset. I was tired of it. I was tired of seeing my community be murdered and with little to no justice. And I went out, and I've always been a leader, but I didn't think I was going to lead in this way. And I started leading protests alongside random people for that first week of the end of May. Mm-hmm. And then on June 1st, I had gotten a call up from someone I went to high school with. And he was like, "Hey, I see you're out on the front lines and I'm building this thing and I want you to be a part of it." And I got added to a Signal group chat and we came up with the name. And then on June 1st, we led tens of thousands of people through New York City.
Wow. Yeah. So how did you organize? Was it on social media or was it you said through Signal?
Yeah, first we more internal organizing through Signal, but I then took the traction of leading online, I mean, leading offline into online, and then built our online presence using, the momentum we had and funneled people who were interacting with us online into offline. A lot of people were
Wow.
like, oh my God, I wasn't able to make it to the next one. How can I show up at the next one? Or
Yep.
when are you going to have another mutual aid drive? Like, I was able to collect massive amounts of donations of goods to give out to community members through the means of social media. And primarily Instagram is how I started.
That's really cool. I think that we forget that social media can still be used for good and for mobilization. Wow, that is absolutely amazing. So you've gone on to build both digital movement media and Truce Cinema. Can you share sort of the mission behind each and how you founded them?
Yeah, I founded both last year. I'll start with Treuse Cinema because that came first. I
Yes.
founded Treuse Cinema April 25th, 2025. That was 3 days after I saw Sinners in the movie theater.
Oh,
When did I saw it twice. That was my second time seeing it. On the 22nd was my second time
yes.
seeing it. And the second time I was seeing it, I was like, oh my gosh, everybody Black needs to see this movie.
Mhm.
But then I realized I live in Detroit, Michigan. I live very close to the downtown, like the city center. And you have to drive 40 plus minutes to go see a movie. And that's on like non peak driving hours. And so I realized then and there, I was like, oh, everybody Black in Detroit can't have this movie going experience with other people in a packed theater because you have to worry about transportation, reliable transportation. You have to worry about access to resources like gas. And you also want to have a good time when you go out. And so I realized I did some research and I was like, something's up. Why is there not a movie theater in this city, like
Right.
the center? It's all out in the suburbs. And I learned that there was one in the Renaissance Center a while ago, and there's a couple of indie movie pop-ups and indie movie spaces where they do like old film movies, but nothing for blockbuster, nothing for new things coming out. And so I realized, okay, realize is my favorite word.
Nice.
And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna build a movie theater, a boutique movie theater central to downtown Detroit that will bridge the gap between blockbuster, a local and indie films, but also give discussion after films. I don't know if you've ever like
Oh,
watched a
yes.
movie.
Yeah.
When you leave the movie, you're like awkwardly holding the door for someone else and then you leave and it's just like an awkward exchange, even though you just watched something that possibly changed how you view the world and
Right.
people.
Right.
And so, yeah, I really want to build community through the medium of film out here in Detroit and give back to the local filmmakers here. And then Digital Movement Media, I founded Digital Movement Media in July 2025 after I had decided that the impact I was looking to create couldn't be done working underneath an organization. It had to be done working alongside where I can make the decisions and show them, this framework is based on past work, but it is something that this is how it has to be implemented.
So
And yeah, so I decided to be my own boss. And yeah, it's great.
And then, yes, being your own boss, it's often like a total roller coaster. That is so amazing. So I'm just thinking, like, just I have another question about the cinema.
Hmm.
So to build something like that, I imagine you had to work with a lot of community members, and I think that nonprofits can really understand. Like, they see a problem, they see an issue, they see a gap that they want filled, and I love that. So, like, what was the first step you took to fill that
Um,
gap?
yeah, the first step I took was I reached out to the city actually because they have a like film department in the city where the film resources. It's called Film Outreach Detroit, and they were having a fair, kind of a fair of film resources and places to connect with for local filmmakers. And I reached out to the city and I was like, hey, can I table here? I really want to run this survey out
Oh,
to
yes.
get data for my business to validate my business plan and model. And they're like, yeah, of course, you can definitely have a table. And so I tabled there, I collected surveys, but I also interacted with a lot of Detroiters, Black Detroiters, that every time I reiterated what I was doing and what I was
Uh,
working on, they very much, they were like, yeah, we need that. And how
mhm.
can we support and signing up for my mailing list and doing the survey? And so I got in front of people's face instead of operating, behind my screen just because this is new, something new. And then I started using Threads, and I made a couple of posts on Threads about what I was working on and who I am, and went semi-viral. And I realized I made the post and I didn't consider a call to action at the end of the post because I wasn't really trying to do any call to action. I was just trying to bridge awareness. But then I started getting traction and people saying in the comments, how can we help? How can we help? How can we support? What, like, and so I was like, oh my God, quick call to action, sign up for my mailing list. And that day I got 160 new mailing list signups.
Wow.
So yeah, then
So the power of like in-person organizing and the power of digital, that seems to me be a real theme in your work, which I think is so interesting. And I think that is just, you know, a lot of nonprofits also can recognize that. So that's really cool. So is that kind of what spurred your digital to action framework? A lot of the things that you saw really worked in your own life. Like, can we talk about maybe the origin of the framework and then maybe some of the core components?
Yeah. So the origin of the framework was definitely the beginning of the 2020 movements. And I've had to enhance it throughout the years because the digital space changed so much. And, you know, you said something earlier where you said we forget that social media can be used as like a tool for progress and stuff. But I don't even think that we forget. I think that those platforms were never made for us to use it in this way.
Right.
And so it takes, you know, people like me, people like you, people who do digital strategy work in that space and so on social media platforms to then manipulate and leverage these platforms to do really good work. And I think that that's something that collectively we should be more cognizant of because these platforms, Mark Zuckerberg did not make Instagram and say, oh, social impact organizations are going to love this, you know.
Let's not give Mark Zuckerberg credit for Instagram. That's
also very true.
But he didn't buy it and then and he didn't create Facebook. Exactly. So the point is that I totally agree with you. And
big tech,
they wanted to sell.
Big tech did not want to have social justice tied to it. And, you know, them doing I remember when they did the donate feature for the first time on Instagram, I actually used it as soon as it dropped. And this goes into the strategy and the framework. I'm sorry, I'm going off on it.
No, I love this. I used it too when it first came out.
When it first dropped, there was the situation with the Haitian migrants at the Texas border in 2021. And me and the other co-founder of Warriors in the Garden took to our Instagram. We grabbed the horrible images of, you know, like border patrol agents on horses, like whipping Haitian migrants in 2021. Wow. And then used the donate feature to raise funds in we raised $15,000 in less than 24 hours for the Haitian migrants at the border for an organization that was on the ground. And so, I very much, there's many aspects that go into the digital to action framework. The first thing that I've noticed in my time, you know, building it, enhancing it, is that you have to be doing some kind of on the ground work or on the ground, like alluding to on the ground work or some kind of activation, right? If you're not, and on the ground can mean many things. It can mean a soup kitchen. It can mean doing a mutual aid drive. It can mean hosting a rally. It can mean running your program for the youth. On the ground can look very different in this context. If you're not doing like in-person work, this framework will not work for you because you can build an audience and you can mobilize people without being on the ground, but it is so much harder to get people to trust what you're doing. And so, so being on the ground is a requirement for this. Doing actual work, in-person work, impacting communities, impacting people is a requirement for this framework. And when you do that, this is when storytelling, this is where you capture getting your images, getting your videos, getting your testimonials, getting your impact, showing it. This is where that comes to play. And then you take it to your digital audiences and you put it all nice and pretty. That's where design comes in. Yes. And then you set your schedule and you push your content out, right? Once you push your content out, the engagement you're getting on your content is someone who's interested in what you're doing, what you posted, what you have to say, and what your organization's mission is, right? And so that is then time for you to make sure you have a call to action for people who are looking at your content. The call to action should be something, it shouldn't be like save, share this post. It should be something like, and our next activation is coming up in 2 weeks. Register now.
Mhm.
I'll DM you the link. And now there's automation tools where, people can comment a word and get the link.
Oh, I love that feature on Instagram where it's like, say, remind me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I use it for like TV shows, but
Yeah.
I'm imagining it could be used for other things.
Yeah. Yeah. The remind me button when you set a calendar event. Yeah. Yeah. You can use that. What I like to do too is before ManyChat became a thing. Are you familiar with ManyChat?
I'm not on ManyChat, but I know what it is.
Yeah, before it became a thing, I was doing semi-automation for this organization I was working for, Seeding Sovereignty. And basically, I would draft a saved reply
Yes.
as an emoji and just to save more time. And so whenever I was interacting with someone from the content and I'd go message them, I'd just put the emoji in and the whole message would load and I'd send it and then keep interacting and keep engaging that way. You have to engage your audience. So it starts from on the ground work being a requirement, storytelling, visually pleasing, graphic pleasing, good content, and then engagement after. The engagement portion is really important because that's where you funnel people through different channels, right? I think all nonprofits should think about how they can get their communities not completely on these platforms because like we just said, those big tech platforms weren't meant for that. So whether it's a newsletter, whether it's a Signal chat, whether it's a Telegram, whether it's another way your audience can interact with you that's off these big tech platforms, that way you have them engaged if, let's say, Instagram shuts down or TikTok gets sold by the US and they just saw 150% users leave TikTok. So it's like, when you think about that, that's a whole chunk of nonprofit audiences that were engaged with the nonprofit on TikTok, So it's like if you don't have another channel, you could lose a really big chunk of your support. And so, yeah.
Yes. I love that because that's what I sort of teach as well. These platforms are really great, like you said, for mobilization, for awareness, but for long-term support and to build your donor file, that's not what they're built for. And that's not what they do best. Mm-hmm. And to get people off the platforms onto like your email list or onto like a chat feature. The American Heart Association does this really well. A few years ago, I signed up or I made a donation, and the chat feature, it messaged me in Facebook Messenger and it said, thank you so much. Would you like some more resources? And of course I clicked yes. And then it kind of went, it's all automated.
Yeah.
But they don't message me very often, but they sent me a message like on Giving Tuesday. They sent me a message for year end, just like a reminder, like, hey, you're participating with us. You're interested in us.
Yeah.
And it cuts through the clutter, of course. Like, it's like a text message.
Yeah.
Whereas seeing that in my feed, how do you work with your clients on the sort of decimated organic reach? Like, do we have to put some money behind this framework?
I actually am so against like paying for ads, paying for visibility.
We don't want to make them richer. We don't
want to make them richer. And I also just do not believe that it's necessary when we're talking about movement building work, right? And on the digital framework, there are now the tools of collaboration where if you collaborate with many different partners, like let's say it's a campaign, what I do is if we're doing a campaign, we have 5 to 10 partners that we want to tap into, their audiences to tap into. That's where you start building your relationships and your partnerships. You tag them into the campaign. I've done this many times. And you build out the campaign. You decide who's going to carry what workload. Are we going to work on the graphics together? Like, what is the messaging? And you put it out and you collaborate with everyone. And you take the engagement that's happening throughout the campaign and you interact with those real people, right? So it's like using the collaboration feature is like my best tool. I love that feature. I'm so happy that they created it because you tap into other audiences. Let's say if you are a organization who is running a campaign. I've done this actually. I ran a campaign for Black History Month in 2024, but I focused it on climate because I was working with an organization that was super focused on climate. And throughout the whole month, I collaborated with 10 Black climate activists who have their own platforms and, do their own work. And I did that through a live, we did like live discussions.
Oh, cool.
And then I collaborated with bigger organizations like Congo Friends and Intersectional Environmentalists because they have a really big platform and their audience cared about climate. And I felt like it was my responsibility in the role I was doing to educate around African American struggles within climate and environmental justice. And so yeah, I collaborated with those three organizations. Like I choose really intentional partners and their audiences I take into account. And also what I believe is missing, right? In terms of like knowledge, the knowledge gap, the access to information for audiences that are tapped in, what would they care about? And all of these, this whole campaign did very great, but the collaboration posts did the best and the most amazing. I think we've gotten the Congo Friends post, I think we got like 35,000 likes and like hundreds of comments of people saying like, oh my gosh, thank you for this information. I didn't know about this information. That's a whole new list of people who are getting into your content and getting into what you're about. And tapping into all of those people who are engaging, whether it's in the comments or in your DMs. That's so important.
Yep. Can you tell people a little bit about collaboration posts, and then also like how do you find those partners and approach those partners if you're just like a small nonprofit, you don't really know many other organizations?
Yeah, I am like a really big cold emailer. That's how you connect.
Oh, good.
You and I connected. I cold email you and I was like, hey, I just saw I just saw one of your presentations and like we're in the same line of work. Can we have time to chat? And so I'm really big on reaching out. And if my reach out didn't, trigger something, I would go to someone else that I know who has some kind of connection. I would try to find some kind of way to connect with the people I need, because at the end of the day, in my experience, what I've learned is if you are an organization, no matter if you're small or big, if you're doing the work and if you have a really good mission and it's tight and it's solid and it has impact, I believe that from my experience, other organizations will see that in whatever interaction you have and will likely be open to doing some collaborations with you. And also, even if you're a smaller organization, collaborating with smaller organizations is just as effective. It's a smaller number of people you're engaging, but you're engaging people regardless.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. So which digital platforms do you find drive the most engagement?
That is such a good question. I think all of the platforms are really different in their own ways. Instagram is my favorite. I have built so much on Instagram and I've created a lot of impact through Instagram. And I see now, even for example, in 2020, I'm seeing what happened in 2020 where, there was just a page in New York City called Justice for George NYC. And that page posted actions every day, no matter where in the city. It could have been in the Bronx, it could have been uptown, it could have been in Queens, it could have been any part of the city. It was just keeping people. It was like a board for activations in the city. And I'm seeing it now with like the ICE protests, right? It's like all of these activations you see, and it's how people are getting informed on how to show up. And so Instagram definitely has a really big impact with how people are consuming what's going on around us on a social impact standpoint, and also what they can do. And then there's TikTok, but that's TikTok's. We're losing platforms, right? TikTok's users are down by 150%, which is ridiculous. And after US takeover, that makes sense. But now that's a whole platform, basically, in the end zone. Same thing with Twitter. Now X, it's like in the end zone. And so it's like before TikTok and Twitter went into the end zone, I think that they were also super impactful, because that's where
Twitter was amazing when it was Twitter.
Yeah, when Twitter was Twitter, that's where I got all of my news from. Like, quick. It was just so quick. But now it's shifted and it's Instagram. And I feel like Threads is contending really hard right now.
Yes.
But these are meta platforms, and I don't trust meta platforms as much. So yeah, it's kind of bittersweet that Instagram is the one for me and that I've seen do a lot of good work, but
Right.
it is Meta owned and I'm trying to break away from that. So
But you're seeing traction on Threads. What about like Blue Sky? Are people using?
I've been on I've I have an account. I made an
Mhm.
account for a client before. I actually I was doing a lot of data search for platforms and
Right.
like their demographics and stuff, and I think it was like 55% of Blue Sky is like mainly men, and
Oh,
so I think there's things going on over there. It's
yeah.
definitely an audience over there, but I have not tapped into it with clients yet because I think the intentionality behind it, I think for any platform you're getting on, and this is
Yes.
another topic, the intentionality and the use like is so important. What are you trying to get from it, right? Like what are your
Exactly.
goals from the platform, and which platforms has the audience you're looking for
Yes.
is more
Yeah.
important. You don't need every single social media platform. You don't
No.
need every single social media platform. If you want to get into with Gen Z, I would say Facebook,
Yeah.
YouTube, and Instagram. If you want to reach
YouTube.
the millennials, I would say Facebook. And, if you want to reach Gen Alpha, I'm going to say like Roblox or something.
Roblox. Oh my gosh, my
Yeah.
son is on that and my daughter. Yeah. That's like the one thing they both play together and she's 16 and he's 11. So that's like the oh my god. Yeah, if you could advertise on that, you're going to be but also I think YouTube because in terms of ads like you're advertising because my kids are both on YouTube constantly. And actually YouTube to me I think crosses generational boundaries. Like my mom is on YouTube constantly. I'm always on YouTube and my kids are on YouTube. So it's almost like crossing the boundaries, but it's not like Instagram where it can be like a sort of a bulletin board for activation. You really have to have good video content, even if it's like shorts, YouTube shorts or something like that.
Yes, I agree with you. Short form video is really, it's all about like the first 3 to 7 seconds, like how much can you
Yes.
engage someone within that time frame. And I am more of a conscious consumer when it comes to consuming content.
Yeah.
And yeah, if I don't feel inspired or like I'm learning something or there is something beautiful, even a place I've never seen before, or like,
Mm.
something I've never heard of before, or, even something that's completely funny and crazy that I would never think of, like thinking outside the box when it comes to how you're going to engage your audience is so important when you're creating these videos.
Absolutely. Those 3 to 7 seconds are so important. Can we talk about storytelling? So, do you, in the digital action framework, is it a combination of storytelling and information? Like, how do you balance statistics around the problem and then also the compelling stories that people need to get them to take action?
Yeah, I think there's so many ways you can do it when you're creating content, right? The ways that I've done it in this framework is I would, let's say I'd use photos from a photographer in a movement, and then in the caption, I'd give off like tidbits of information that would help inform people on what's going on and what the pictures are about and the data around it. Then there's, infographics, everybody's favorite thing. I create infographics if there's a topic I'm expanding on that doesn't need to be in a like 6 paragraph Instagram caption. If there's so much data or if the topic is very large and there's many aspects of the topic, that's how I'll turn it into a campaign. For example, I did a disability justice campaign for a week in July of 2024, and I created all of the graphics, but I pulled from disability justice advocates the information that they have, the data
Yeah.
they have constructed, and I just made it more accessible and easier to grasp
Right.
for people in the audience I was engaging. And yeah, I was able to inform people about disability justice and disability justice marches and fights for the reason why we have like first aid, not first aid, sorry. The reason why we have like aid ramps
Yes.
and elevators and stairs, like the reason why we have that are because of disability justice advocates, saying we are human too. And so making sure I tapped in with the visual storytelling of getting pictures from those marches all those years ago and making sure I could properly convey what that was like and the stories that existed within that, while also tying in informational data. It is a very interesting art because you have to know how to not do information overload, but
Yes.
also inform properly and also get people following up after, you're informing them with like a, here's how you can support this issue. Here's how you can support this organization. Here's how you can support these people that are doing this work. Here's how you can support our work. Like making sure you have a good flow of telling the story, whether it's yours, a constituent, or people in the past movement makers, telling that story,
Mm-hmm.
not information overload, making sure you can properly convey the data and the
Yes.
information, the knowledge, and then making sure you tie it all together with, okay, you just learned all of this. Here's a way to keep supporting.
What is the most common mistake you see nonprofits make in their digital strategy?
Not having one.
Right, right.
Not having one. A lot of nonprofits do not have digital strategy, and they just do like impact posting where they'll post like a picture of donations they got and say,
Yes.
wow, oh my god, thanks, we fed all of these kids, or
Yeah.
we, or a picture of soccer balls and say, oh my god, thank you for these donations of soccer balls, now we can have like our annual soccer game, or like it's no digital strategy goes into a lot of postings that I've seen. And I understand nonprofits have not yet built in the structure for digital strategy and digital engagement into their budgets, right? And I think that that needs to change, especially as we keep entering digital spaces each time breaking news happens, right? Like so many
Yep.
nonprofits that service communities are impacted by what's going on in our country and in the
They're
world.
scared.
They're scared, and it's like we have a responsibility to help lift each other up in the ways that we know how. And the digital space is one of them because that's where we all get informed. That's how we all see the atrocities happening. That's how we all just interact. And it's time to strategize around that because look at the other side. Look at the side we're fighting, right? I despise that other side, but they are
Yes.
so organized digitally and
Unified, organized, and have
unified,
tons of
organized,
money to back them
have,
up.
and have tons of money. And so when we talk about, what I like to do is I like to work with clients where they're at, and I try to offer like as low as I can for the impact that I know they want to create, because I know that it's not factored into the budget, but it is still a need. And that's why I also have like my training modules on this
Yes.
digital action framework, so that instead of like paying for my services each month, I'm teaching this digital to action framework to nonprofits, and then
Amazing.
they can just implement it and enhance it. Yeah.
All right. Well, where can people find these training modules? Where can they connect with you and learn more about you?
Yeah, you can find more about me in the training modules. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I am always on LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah, LinkedIn.
Yeah,
What
I'm
do you think
always.
about LinkedIn? Not to interrupt you, really,
Oh,
but
yeah,
like,
yeah,
we
yeah.
didn't talk about LinkedIn.
We didn't talk about LinkedIn. I actually like LinkedIn a
I do
lot, and I
too.
think there's some like interesting. Whenever I'm on another platform and I see what they have to say about LinkedIn, I feel a little bit jaded because I'm like, wait, like that's not my experience. I know there
Yeah.
are some crazy posts out there, but I do like the community building around professionalism. I did see a couple of posts recently where people were saying like, why are we continuing business as usual on here? And I thought that was a really great conversation to be having, because
Yeah.
it felt really weird to see like impact reports and like impact pictures and
Yeah.
gala pictures and stuff. Like it felt really weird to see business
Right.
as usual when outside is like
The
turmoil.
world's
Right.
burning. Yeah.
Yeah, the walls are burning. So I actually liked that conversation started to happen on LinkedIn. And I like the community aspect of LinkedIn. It
Yeah.
feels so communal, and I do believe that nonprofits, when they do it right, they can definitely find grant partners or more constituents to rally for their cause on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Okay. So you're on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn.
I'll put the link in the show notes. And where else?
Yeah, and then Digital Movement Media's website, so you can also put that in the show notes too. The module training program is actually on my website in a small like informational way, like kind of what each module is about.
Yep.
And then you can fill out like a inquiry form on my website, and I'll reach out to people who are really interested in learning this framework, because that's my impact, making sure I can have it exist outside of me and keep it going. Like that's how I'm impacting society. That's my contribution.
Yes, I love it. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast. This was so helpful, so informative. I love to talk about social media, but I love like different perspectives, and I love a framework. So I think my audience is going to get a lot out of it. But thanks, Kiara, for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Julia, for having me. This was such a fun chat. Thank you.
Well, hey there. I wanted to say thank you for tuning into my show and for listening all the way to the end. If you really enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app, and you'll get new episodes downloaded as soon as they come out. I would love if you left me a rating or a review, because this tells other people that my podcast is worth listening to. And then me and my guests can reach even more earbuds and create even more impact. So that's pretty much it. I'll be back soon with a brand new episode. But until then, you can find me on Instagram at JuliaCampbell77. Keep changing the world, you nonprofit unicorn.